The life of Jan Pol, widely known as Dr. Pol, is not just the story of a famous veterinarian, but a journey shaped by hardship, kindness, and years of quiet dedication. He was born on September 4, 1942, in a small village in the Netherlands during a very difficult time in history. The country was still under German occupation during World War II, and life was not easy for families living on farms. Jan grew up in a household with 6 children, where everyone had responsibilities and no one had the luxury of resting. His parents ran a dairy farm, and from a young age, he learned the meaning of hard work. Every morning and evening, cows needed to be milked, animals needed feeding, and the farm needed constant care. There were no machines to help, so everything was done by hand. But more than just work, his parents taught him something deeper. They showed kindness even in hard times. During the war, they helped people in danger, including hiding a Jewish boy and giving shelter to a family in need. These acts of courage and humanity quietly shaped Jan's thinking. He learned that helping others, whether people or animals, was not a choice but a responsibility. As he grew older, the farm became his classroom. He observed how animals behaved, how they responded to care, and how important patience was. One moment changed his life forever. When he was 12 years old, a local veterinarian came to help with a difficult animal birth. Jan was asked to assist, and during that intense and messy experience, something clicked inside him. He realized that this was what he wanted to do for the rest of his life. Becoming a veterinarian was no longer just an idea. It became his purpose. From that day on, every chore, every challenge, and every long day felt like a step toward that dream. As Jan moved forward in life, his path was not easy, but it was clear. He continued working on the farm while studying hard in school. There were no shortcuts. If an animal got sick and needed a veterinarian, the family did not even have a phone. Someone had to ride a bicycle for miles just to call for help. These experiences built not only physical strength, but also mental toughness. Eventually, his hard work paid off when he was accepted into veterinary school at Utrecht University. This was a big achievement, especially for someone from a farming background. While studying, he faced long hours and difficult lessons, but he stayed focused on his goal. Around this time, another important part of his life began. As a young man, he had the chance to travel to the United States as an exchange student. This experience changed everything. It was there that he met Diane, the woman who would become his wife and lifelong partner. Their relationship started simply, but it grew stronger over time, even across long distances. They wrote letters to each other, sharing their thoughts and building a connection that refused to fade. Eventually, they decided to get married in 1967, even though they were still building their lives. Diane made a huge sacrifice by moving to the Netherlands and adjusting to a new culture and language. She worked as a teacher to support them while Jan finished his studies. Her support played a huge role in his success. When he finally graduated in 1970, he did not just carry a degree. He carried years of effort, sacrifice, and the strong foundation of a partnership that would support him through everything ahead. After finishing his education, Jan and Diane made another bold decision that would shape their future. They chose to move to the United States and start a new life there. This was not an easy choice. Leaving behind family, culture, and familiarity is always difficult, but Jan saw an opportunity. He believed that rural America needed veterinarians who were willing to work hard and help farmers directly. They settled in Michigan, where life was simple but demanding. Diane returned to teaching, providing stability, while Jan began working as a veterinarian. His work was not easy or glamorous. He spent long days traveling from farm to farm, often in difficult weather conditions, treating animals of all kinds. Sometimes he handled more than 20 cases in a single day. Over time, he built trust with farmers because he showed up when needed and did not avoid hard situations. He understood that for farmers, animals were not just animals, they were their livelihood. A sick cow could mean financial trouble for an entire family. This understanding made him more than just a veterinarian. It made him a trusted part of the community. In 1981, after years of learning and gaining experience, Jan and Diane decided to start their own veterinary practice. They began in the simplest way possible, working out of their garage. There were risks, and there were no guarantees of success. But they had something more important than money. They had experience, determination, and the trust of the people around them. Slowly, their practice grew. At the same time, their family grew too. They adopted 3 children, building a home filled with love and care. Their journey was not traditional, but it was meaningful and strong. As the years passed, the veterinary practice became very busy and successful. It handled thousands of animals every year, ranging from small pets to large farm animals. Jan became known for his practical approach. He focused on solving problems quickly and effectively, even if his methods did not always look perfect. This approach later became a topic of debate, especially when his work was shown on television. In 2011, his life changed again when his work became the focus of a reality TV show. The show gave viewers a close look at rural veterinary life, something many people had never seen before. It showed the real challenges, the emergencies, and the hard work involved. The show quickly became popular because it felt real. It did not try to hide the mess or the difficulty. However, not everyone agreed with what they saw. Some professionals criticized his methods, saying they did not follow modern standards. Complaints were filed, and legal cases followed. At times, he faced fines and probation. But there were also moments when court supported him, saying there was not enough evidence against him. This created a divided opinion among the public. Some people believed he was doing his best in difficult conditions, while others believed he should follow stricter rules. Despite the criticism, many of his clients stood by him. They trusted him because they had seen his work firsthand. For them, his care was not about perfection. It was about being there when it mattered most. The show continued to grow in popularity, attracting hundreds of thousands of viewers and becoming one of the most successful programs on its network. Behind the success and fame, however, life was not always easy for the family. In 2019, they faced a heartbreaking loss when a young member of the extended family passed away at just 23 years old. This tragedy came after another loss just a few years earlier, when his father had died from cancer. These events brought deep emotional pain to the family. From the outside, everything may have looked successful and stable, but inside, they were dealing with grief and loss. The story of this young man also highlighted an important issue. Reports later suggested that mental health struggles played a role in his death. This reminded many people that even those who seem strong and successful can be fighting silent battles. It became a moment for reflection, both for the family and for viewers. It showed that life is not just about achievements or public success. It is also about the personal struggles that people face quietly. Around the same time, health challenges also affected the family. Diane, who had always been a strong and supportive figure, needed serious back surgery. This was another difficult moment that forced the family to slow down and focus on what truly mattered. These events added emotional weight to their story and showed that behind the camera, they were just like any other family facing real-life challenges. After many years of success, the television show eventually came to an end in 2024. This surprised many fans because the show was still popular and had a strong audience. The decision to cancel it was explained as part of changing viewer preferences, but many people felt that the story was not over. The final episode felt like a goodbye, filled with memories and reflections on the journey. It reminded viewers of how far the family had come, from a small farm in the Netherlands to becoming a well-known name in television. Even though the show ended, Jan did not completely step away from his work. He continued practicing in a limited way, staying connected to the community he had served for decades. At over 80 years old, his dedication remained strong. The story also continued in new ways, including projects that focused on farm life and family efforts. Through everything, one thing remained constant: the work, the care for animals, the commitment to helping people. Fame came and went, but the foundation of his life never changed. His journey is a reminder that success is not always about recognition. Sometimes it is about showing up every day, doing the work, and making a difference in small but meaningful ways. The story of Jan Pol did not truly end when the cameras stopped rolling, because the life he built was never only about television. Long before fame arrived, his days were already filled with purpose, and that did not disappear just because the show ended. After 2024, when the long-running series came to a close, many fans wondered what life would look like for him and his family. For someone who had spent decades working almost every day, slowing down was not easy. Even in his 80s, he continued to stay involved in the clinic, though in a more limited way. Instead of rushing from farm to farm all day, he began focusing on guiding others, sharing his experience, and helping when truly needed. This shift from constant physical work to a more balanced pace marked a new chapter in his life. It also showed something important about his character. His identity was never tied only to being on television. It was rooted in helping animals and supporting the people who depended on them. That kind of purpose does not retire easily. Around him, the clinic he helped build continued to operate, supported by a team of veterinarians and staff who had learned from his methods over the years. His influence remained in the way the clinic worked, in its practical approach, and in its connection to the local community. For many families in rural Michigan, the clinic was not just a place for treatment. It was part of their lives, a place they trusted during difficult moments. This lasting impact is one of the most powerful parts of his story. It shows that real success is not only measured by fame or numbers, but by the difference a person makes in everyday lives over time. At the same time, the family itself continued to grow and change, adapting to life beyond the spotlight. The end of the show allowed them to focus more on personal projects and new ideas that had been waiting in the background. One of these was a farming project that aimed to bring the story back to its roots. Instead of focusing only on veterinary work, this new direction explored land, crops, and the effort required to build and maintain a working farm. It connected back to Jan's childhood in the Netherlands, where everything began on a dairy farm surrounded by animals and hard work. This return to farming was not just about business. It was about identity and tradition. It allowed the family to share another side of their life with people who had followed them for years. It also created opportunities for younger generations to take part and learn. The idea of passing knowledge from one generation to another has always been central to Jan's story. He learned from his parents, then built his own path, and later shared that experience with his children and colleagues. This cycle of learning and teaching continued even after the cameras were gone. It showed that while television brought attention, the real story was always about growth, effort, and connection. In many ways, this quieter phase of life allowed the family to focus on what truly mattered without the pressure of constant filming and public attention. Even as life moved forward, the emotional weight of past events remained part of the story. The loss the family experienced in 2019 did not simply fade with time. Grief has a way of staying, even as people learn to live around it. For the family, this meant carrying memories while continuing with daily life. It also meant finding ways to honor those they lost by staying strong and supporting each other. These moments of pain added depth to their story and made it more real for those who followed them. It reminded people that behind every public figure is a private life filled with struggles that are not always visible. The conversation around mental health that came from that tragedy also left a lasting impact. It encouraged people to look more closely at the lives of those around them and to understand that not all battles are easy to see. This part of the story, though painful, became one of its most meaningful lessons. It showed that strength is not about avoiding hardship, but about facing it and continuing to move forward. For Jan and his family, this meant staying connected, supporting each other, and finding ways to keep going even when things were difficult. It is a reminder that life is not always balanced. There are moments of joy and moments of deep sadness, and both are part of the journey. Looking back at the full journey, it becomes clear that the story of the incredible Dr. Pol was never just about a television show. It was about a way of life that many people had never seen before. It opened a window into rural communities, showing the hard work, the challenges, and the quiet strength of people who live close to the land. Through simple moments, like helping a cow give birth or treating a sick pet, it told a much larger story about care, responsibility, and resilience. The show's success came from its honesty. It did not try to make things look perfect. Instead, it showed life as it is, with all its mess and unpredictability. This honesty is what connected with viewers and kept them watching for so many years. Even the controversies around the show became part of its story. They sparked discussions about what veterinary care should look like and how different environments require different approaches. These debates did not have simple answers, but they highlighted the complexity of real-world situations. In the end, the show left behind more than entertainment. It left behind conversations, memories, and a deeper understanding of a world that is often overlooked. For many viewers, it also created a sense of connection to the people and animals they watched over the years. That connection did not disappear when the show ended. It continued in the stories people shared, in the lessons they remembered, and in the respect they developed for the work being done. As time goes on, the legacy of Jan Pol will likely continue to grow in quiet ways. It may not always be in the spotlight, but it will remain in the lives he touched and the work he inspired. His story is a reminder that greatness does not always come from big moments. Sometimes, it comes from showing up every day and doing what needs to be done, even when it is hard. It comes from helping others without expecting recognition and from staying true to one's values even when facing criticism. His journey from a small farm in the Netherlands to becoming a well-known figure in the United States is not just a story of success. It is a story of persistence, sacrifice, and purpose. It shows that a simple dream, when followed with determination, can lead to something much bigger than expected. At the same time, it also shows that no matter how far someone goes, their roots remain important. The lessons learned in childhood, the values taught by family, and the experiences gained through hard work all stay with a person throughout life. In the end, what makes his story truly powerful is not the fame or the numbers. It is the consistency of his work, the care he showed, and the impact he had on both people and animals. That is the kind of legacy that lasts long after the cameras are gone, and the spotlight fades away. As the years continue to move forward, the story of Jan Pol becomes less about headlines and more about legacy, reflection, and the quiet impact of a life spent in service. For many people, especially those who followed his journey for years, it is easy to focus only on the television success or the emotional moments shown on screen. But the deeper truth lies in what remains after everything slows down. In rural communities, where life depends heavily on animals and agriculture, the presence of a reliable veterinarian is not just helpful, it is essential. Jan understood this from the very beginning, and he built his entire career around that understanding. Even now, as he steps back from the demanding pace he once kept, his influence continues through the people he trained and the systems he helped build. Younger veterinarians who worked alongside him carry forward his practical approach, balancing knowledge with real-world conditions. They continue visiting farms, helping families, and solving problems in the same spirit he showed for decades. This kind of influence is not something that fades quickly. It spreads quietly, shaping how work is done long after the original person is no longer at the center. For Jan, this may be one of the most meaningful parts of his journey. It shows that his work was never just about individual success, but about creating something that could continue without him. In a way, this stage of life allows him to see the results of everything he built, not in awards or fame, but in the steady continuation of care and service in the community he chose as his home. At the same time, the relationship between the family and their audience has also changed in an interesting way. When the show was at its peak, millions of people were watching their lives unfold through episodes filled with emergencies, challenges, and small victories. Viewers felt connected, almost like they were part of the journey. After the show ended, that connection did not disappear,